Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, we ballin', and we welcoming another big boy to the Red Raider fam family. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On at Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day and always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you'll get them cast. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, my man. And it is Insight Bowl Eve as we are having this conversation. Finally back at it for the final time in 2023, as it's the Red Raiders and Cal Golden Bears coming up from Shreveport, Louisiana. We're getting to that in just a moment. And, of course, we're also finishing out the week with another portal roundup. You got more beef on the way. I wish somebody else, I guess, would ask about this position or that position that they want Texas Tech to address, because since an offensive line question a couple of days ago, we've had a couple of big ones land as far as their destination being Lubbock, Texas. We'll get to that. And also getting set for hoops coming up tomorrow from Fort Worth. It's the Red Raiders and the Commodores of Vanderbilt. Chris will be on that call from Cowtown. We'll get to that in just a second. But, yeah, setting the table for kickoff coming up tomorrow night. Whatever you like or dislike about the bowl game, Chris, definitely like the time slot. The Red Raiders will have a nice evening spotlight on their ball game and hopefully a good showing. And, of course, as we've been talking about throughout the week, trying to figure out exactly who will be there for the showing as you round out the roster, man. But looking forward to this one. And I got to tell you, a little bit anxious about the matchup, because while you had a better November than you did some other months, you didn't finish the season, the regular season, on a high note, obviously in Austin, taking a drubbing. Meanwhile, Cal, winners of a few consecutively and probably feeling as good going into this one as they have at any point throughout the season. So we'll see what's in store for us.
It's our Independence Day tomorrow. Yeah, that's right.
You want Bill Pullman on me?
Yeah, well, or I could go. I'm trying to think of who say Andy Williams. Maybe it's the most wonderful time of the year. There's just a lot going on this weekend, man. I tell you, if you were in a position to post up in the old living room, fire going, favorite beverage right there, you're going to get Red Raider Athletics from about 6-ish p.m. tomorrow night until this could go past midnight, depending on how this thing plays out. So it's a rarity. It for those of us directly involved, it sucks because you got to be at one or the other. Can't be at both. I'm hopeful that I'll be home from Fort Worth with a dub under my belt, able to watch or listen by halftime, maybe. If things were to go just perfect, I don't know if I'll be that lucky. But yeah, I'm curious to see. What you get tomorrow night. Obviously, they're in Shreveport. These bowl games, there's so many different dynamics at play. The negatives are it's so early in the schedule that it doesn't really feel like bowl game time yet. You don't get your freshmen there practicing and all those things like they had really hoped to get a lot of them there for. But the positive from just a purely football standpoint is that you do kind of just, it's an extension of your regular season. This is almost feels so sudden that you had a little week or two off and then you're right back into your routine and away you go. So there's not this giant disconnect where you just like totally disconnect, disengage, and then have to re-engage and all that stuff, which can happen to some teams. With a little too much downtime and all those things. But it's about motivation. It's about putting your best foot forward. You've got, for all that you don't have playing in it, you still have a lot that will play in it. A healthier Baron Morton, your running back. I think a healthier offensive line, even though it's minus Monroe Mills, because I do think Cole Spencer will play a ton in this game. Could even start. Would not rule that out in some capacity either. Haven't seen him in a while, but he's one of your older veteran guys. You got a lot of veterans in the secondary, and then obviously in Tony Bradford, and your linebackers are largely untouched and completely healthy. You're too deep, and it's going to be about who wants to tackle and who doesn't want to tackle. Because tomorrow night it's going to be Jade Knott and Taj Brooks are going to get a lot of carries. I would guess I would put an over under there between those two kids. I bet they each carry the football a total of. I mean, I bet you could get into 50 total carries and kind of do the over under there, because I bet they're both close to 23 to 25 carries, maybe even more. And it'll be about who's most effective there, or who's most effective in stopping the other guy there. And we know Taj is very difficult to tackle, so it should be fun. But yeah, healthier Baron, fascinated by the headset stuff and the communication. What does it look like? And then when you get to bowl game time, Cowan, gadgets are in play. Coaches have had a lot of extra time to prepare. They try to make it a bit more fun. You add more things into your game plan, and we saw Zach Kitley do this last year at Ole Miss, especially in the red zone and short yardage and near the goal line. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. But again, you're there to win. So fake a field goal, fake a punt, all those kinds of things at play. And that's really when things can get wild, because, you got a play caller for Cal who won't even be there after this game. He's going to take the head job at UC Davis. So he's like, what do I care? Are you going to fire me for going for it, or fire for me for the trick play that we're going to run? I'm trying to make it fun for the kids. Don't be so mad, man. I'm sorry it didn't work. I mean,
Four hurts.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So all these things would be why I'd be fascinated to sit there and get a good gander at it. And then, some of your younger players that maybe you haven't seen, that is a peek as to what is on the way for next year, is that this is kind of just an earlier start to spring football, is essentially what it is, but it will be televised and they will keep score.
Man, even if it wasn't a bowl game setting, even if we weren't talking about some of the unique or wild things that might be a part of this, it could be a wild one between these two teams at any point this regular season anyway, because both were getting pretty busy in the turnover column throughout the year, and I'm curious to see how that impacts the game. Cal was +2 on the season, but it was a +2, man. They were filling it up on both sides, giving it away 24 times, taking it away 26 times. Tech was -8 for the year. Defensively, Tech only took it away 13 times. Cal took it away 9 times in their final 3 games. So what was contributing to that 3-game winning streak to finish up the regular season? A lot of big plays made for them defensively, but I'm really curious to see if maybe Texas Tech's defense can take advantage of some of what you got going on there with the Golden Bears, as far as them giving it up fairly often. And for the most part, it was really a problem for the Red Raider offense throughout the season, giving the football away a heck of a lot and fairly often. Now, when you got some things tightened up as you got into November, Texas Christian, Kansas, UCF, only 2 turnovers in those 3 games. Well, you had 3 in the final ball game against the University of Texas, so it doesn't look as nice as you would have liked for it to. But I'm going to hope, maybe against hope, that Texas Tech did kind of put their turnover issues behind them. And hopefully that is a lot of credit to a Texas defense making some of those plays, and that we will continue to see Cal giving the football away. I mean, it's just wild to see 13 interceptions, 11 fumbles, 24 times on the year did the Golden Bears give it up. So the turnover margin, like it always is, I guess, is going to loom large, and curious to see how it's involved tomorrow.
Yeah, in the weather, it should be fairly tame. I don't, because a lot of times with the Independence Bowl, I've been to a few of these games back in the day. I mean, I would tell you that I watched Oregon and Wake Forest play one year back in the late 80s, early 90s in this stadium in the Independence Bowl. I watched TCU play Virginia one year. It's always cold. It's always rainy. I was in close proximity, almost went to the game when A&M played Mississippi State. You could not see the field. It was on, I want to say, close to New Year's Eve. It was just it was a mess. I happened to be like 30 minutes away. We thought about going. I'm like, man, I'm not going to sit in that mess. But it appears that I think the weather should be fairly tame, high of like 62. The sun will be down by the time this thing kicks off, so it's going to be a bit colder. But you shouldn't have to deal with any elements, which plays into maybe taking care of the ball a bit better. But yeah. The thing is, from Taj has only fumbled it, I think, once or twice in his career. He did have the one fumble this year He did cough it up. But other than that, that's not really been an issue for him. With Barron, it's the skill around him is going to be different. Your tight ends are largely in place with Baylor Cupp, Mason Tharp. You've got your full complement of running backs and things like that. The wide receiver group, though, that's what's interesting, because Coy Aiken, Dre McCray, Jordan Brown is iffy, Brady Boyd, and then we start getting into some freshmen. You've got Loic Fungi too, and then Kelby Volson and DJ Crest, I believe, and then Loic. So those are largely the targets you would see out of the slot and on the outside for this game. And so it could be interesting from that standpoint if somebody drops one or whatever. That's because you never know in these bowl games, man. Yeah. You just never know, and they're long games. We remember the comeback in Phoenix. You remember there's some. And last year in Houston, it felt like a lot of punch, counter punch, and a lot of I think Lane Kiffin last year did they not go for it on a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 at like their own 10-yard line?
I think so.
I believe. Yeah, and you're like, what am I watching right now? And they ended up getting it. But it's bowl games are fun to some. Some people kind of check out and don't put a lot of weight into it. But most of these kids, they're all about it, man. They want to go out the right way. And I think that Rabbit even had told me leading into this thing, it's like I heard him tell the media something along the lines of you want to leave it better than you found it, and we want to hand the baton off to this program. To these younger guys coming off of a win and all that. So some of these guys will take it very, very seriously. And somebody like him, last chance to put yourself on tape for professional scouts.
Well, and I got to tell you, look, 7-6 is nothing to write home about. But one of these teams is going to finish with a winning record. One of these teams is going to finish with a losing record. They're both coming into it at 6-6. And even though you're not writing home about it, there's going to be a different feeling for one or the other. So really hoping Texas Tech is able to get over that hump and be the one walking away as a winning team this season. And before we move on to hoops, Chris, back to the turnover conversation, really the last really ugly day you had prior to that UT day in that column was at BYU. And we all remember what was going on that day. I do feel like as you got a little bit more into a rhythm with I don't know if I'll say healthy Behren Morton, but healthier Behren Morton, you avoided some of those things again until you got to Austin, and then 3 times I took it away through the year. But in the previous 3 weeks, only 2 picks, and it was, as you just mentioned, through the air that was your trouble. 17 of your 21 turnovers were interceptions in the passing game. Only 4 fumbles a part of that total. So I don't know how much to expect to be on the shoulders of Behren Morton, but I would almost, and maybe this is just some copium I'm administering to myself right now, but I almost tell you that the version of the offense that we saw with Morton was not as turnover prone as what we had seen earlier in the year, or certainly when you had to turn to a third-string freshman quarterback.
Yeah, and some of Barron's interceptions have been, okay, could you make the argument in Austin that Bradley ran, curled off a route before he should have, didn't fight hard enough for the ball, which is, he didn't really come back in after those 2 mishaps. Kind of got it bullied away from him and all that. You could make the argument too that Barron, like the one in Waco, underthrew a deep ball and his arm is not, or shoulder is not quite right, and just couldn't put juice on it. Again, but they show up on the quarterback's ledger. That's the way that it works, whether we agree with it or not. But I do think a healthier version of this, some more practice time and all that. And he's generally stays away from avoiding some of those mistakes as well. So, I think I'd like my chances there. And, and Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback for Cal, he's got, 13 TDs, 7 interceptions. He's got a semi-strong arm and some size to him, but this isn't like, you're not talking about some of the QBs that you've seen this year, like not super athletic, not going to just kill you with his legs and or elite level arm strength and arm talent and all these different things. And so this really, though, is a battle of, I think from general talent standpoint, I mean, Barron, when healthy, and I believe he is much healthier this go around, not totally, but much healthier than we've seen him. I like your chances there for sure. I just,
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get with your group of receivers in this particular game. But I'd be willing to bet you that Coy Aiken gets fed, quite a bit. Dre McCray, you try to beat him, get him some touches going deep. And then I bet you see a few of these young kids. I'm just not going to be surprised if Kelby Volson, if people start to see what he's about a little bit. And then Brady Boyd, who's kind of an unknown to a lot of the fan base as well, it should get some quite a bit of run too.
Man, looking forward to it. Enjoy the ball game. If you're heading out to Shreveport, enjoy the river boat, enjoy the craps table, whatever you got going on there, and make sure you enjoy those gin and tonics responsibly. That's good advice from Locked On Texas Tech. Chris, let's switch gears here. Let's move from the oblong ball to the round ball. Grant McCaslin and the Red Raiders are in Fort Worth. You'll be on this call as Tech takes on Vanderbilt. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime, and you shouldn't have to sweat it out when buying tickets to your favorite events, and with Gametime, you won't, because it's always a breeze. Using the Gametime app, where you're going to find killer last-minute deals, views from every seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats for any event. The fastest, easiest way to buy tickets, and not just fast, but it's also secure and simple to use when you download the Gametime app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime by downloading the Gametime app, creating an account, and then use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our promo code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. You'll be on this call as Tech takes on Vanderbilt. This coming off of a win over Oral Roberts at United Supermarkets Arena. What's your big picture? What's your headline going into this one for the Red Raiders?
Yeah, this is your last opportunity at a pretty, again, Vanderbilt's a tricky one. I think they're supposed to be better than they were. They've had some injuries early on. They played a ton of kids because of these injuries. And they're going to come into this game not having played in 10 days. So they literally took a finals break. The last time they've played was December the 6th. So by the time that they play tomorrow night, they will have gone, I think, 10 full days between games. So they'll be well scouted. They'll know you better than – there's just no scenario I've heard of where there's 10 days between games in college basketball. This is wild to me. I've not seen this before. And it could negatively affect them too. Yes, rested. Yes, well scouted, but also rusty and, with timing and all these different kinds of things too. But they've lost 4 or 5. Jerry Stackhouse, former NBAer, former Dallas Maverick and all that, is their head coach. He's been on the sidelines for Vanderbilt. This is his 2nd or 3rd season. It's not gone just great, but they've got a trio of players that I think for the most part handle their business. But honestly, for what I'm interested in, because so they've lost their last game. They lost to San Francisco at home. Okay, they've lost to Boston College, Arizona State, and NC State. Most of those were neutral site games, part of that holiday tournament. So everybody that they've played from a Power 5-ish standpoint, they've lost to. But I'm more fascinated in like the Texas Tech part of it. And I'll tell you who I'm most intrigued by is Kerwin Walton. This is a kid who's scored 39 points, I think, in the last 2 games total. He is 10 of 14 from 3 in the last 2 games. He's playing like in the 35-minute range. And he's adding assists and rebounds and diving on the floor and all that. And so I'm kind of fascinated to see kind of what this looks like away from home. Can he keep this up and really kind of keep your offensive machine rolling here? I think what we have or we will continue to establish is minus Devin Cambridge, you're just not going to be as good on defense. You were struggling in some aspects of it anyway. But without him and his switchability and, just what he brought to the table, I just don't think you're going to be as good defensively really throughout the year, minus him. However, you can make the argument that you could be a bit better, especially in half-court settings on the offensive end, with Walton and McMillan playing a bit more just because they shoot it so well. It's like you can't leave them. Then you're trying to run this pick and roll in the middle of the floor, with Warren Washington and either Pop or Toussaint. It's like, who do you help off of? You really can't. And like Cambridge was 1 of 11 from 3. He was much better in transition and attacking the rim. That's what we liked about him. So when the game sped up, he was a plus. But if the game slows down, it was not quite as good on the offensive end. So it's all about Kerwin Walton, right? I mean, that's kind of where I want to see now that the show is on the road and you're at a neutral court or just away from Lubbock in general. I want to see if he can kind of continue what he's done in the last 2 games, because he is hotter than the face of the sun right now. It is incredible. I mean, 10 of 14 from 3 is ridiculously hot.
Yeah, and this is the same season we're talking about another guy being one off of the school record for made threes in a game,
Yes.
and Chance McMillan. So, yeah, you like that double shot from either wing if you can have it that way. Curious to see what Kerwin will be able to do there in Fort Worth. And I don't know, just looking from afar at Vanderbilt, man, they look like a team of chuckers, shooting around 30% from three-point range, but putting up 26 per game. I remember Jerry Stackhouse hammering the rim over and over and over. So I don't know, maybe he needs to roll out some of his old highlight tape and say, boys, we're allowed to drive to the basket, I mean, they shoot just under 50% as a team from the field overall, but they're not afraid to put the 3-ball up. And if I was a Vanderbilt fan, maybe I'd want them to be a little more afraid to put the 3-ball up because they're not shooting it all that well.
And that may be, Grant may look at this and go, thank goodness, after they just gave up 16 made threes to Oral Roberts. Maybe a sight for sore eyes. I don't know. But you never know what you're going to get in these neutral site games. I do think there's a lot of Tech fans that have bought a lot of tickets. I hope to see many of you there. Yeah, I think they've sold quite a few tickets to this. This is part of a triple header. TCU and Arizona State play after you. I think the tip there is like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. I think Air Force and UTA are playing before you. So they kind of tried to tie in the Air Force with the Armed Forces Bowl and all those things, I think. So I hope Tech plays an event like this in the Metroplex every year. I just hope that there's not a bowl game going on at the exact same time in years in the future. It makes a ton of sense to play in the Metroplex, though, if you're the Red Raiders, for sure. And you can't, people are like, why don't they play Vanderbilt at home? Well, guess what? Your arena's booked. You can't. Your arena's shut down for graduation for like 3 to 5 days. You're basically kicked out of the USA. So you have to go play somewhere. And I mean, playing in Fort Worth or Dallas or anywhere in the Metroplex is the next closest thing you can get to a home game.
Graduation better than a Baby Shark production, I guess, which seemed like that was a conversation once upon a time or something along those lines. I probably got a detail wrong there. Okay, before we are out of here, how about one more detail to cover, and not just any small little thing. First, today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Testing your skills on PrizePicks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports and the best way to spice up any game anytime. And congrats to all those with the skills to win up to 25 times their money through the football year. And now you can do the same during the hoops calendar as well. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, place your entry, and boom, you're ready to roll. And with the NFL playoffs and bowl season coming up, you can also pick combo projections across football and basketball. With easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and a giant selection of players, projections, and stat categories, it's no surprise that PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So get in on the fun and go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Memphis offensive lineman Davion Carter, now a Red Raider. And Chris, look, I think we all just wanted, as a fan, just wanted to see some offensive linemen beginning to trickle in. So any news would be nice. But, man, talking about the Toledo transfer, and now this cat, 6'3", 285 pounds, which does sound a little light in the britches, but I don't know. Highly regarded, it sounds like, as well, and some stiff competition that you're fending off for this guy. So glad to see another one signing up. But what do you make of Carter, and how do you see him factoring in for the Red Raiders?
Well, he's a starter, and that's a positive. I think what you've done in the last 48 hours is you've solidified the interior of your offensive line for next year. And I think that, we'd had this conversation when you had, Big Vinny from Toledo that joined the fray and all that. We talked about Caleb Rogers, but I think Davion Carter, Vinny, and Caleb Rogers, I think in some form or fashion, that is your starting center and your two guards. That's what I think that's how I bet that plays out. And so, now, and yes, you did. You added Davion Carter, who is, I think he was one, the two guys that you've added here from Toledo and Memphis, arguably two of the top 5 guards in the portal. And again, these rankings are subjective. It's also like a moving target because guys are coming off the board and entering the portal as we go, and probably since we sat here and talked right now. But I think these were two of the more highly regarded guys on the interior of the offensive line in general. And so that's very much a positive. They're both 1-year guys. So, they're ready-made. I think they will benefit, like you mentioned, maybe a little light. They'll benefit from 9 months of your strength program and your nutrition program, and maybe you can add some of that, because I know that certainly benefited Rusty and Cole when they got here and went from Western Kentucky to here, because I don't think people realize how good, like, I don't know if they're all like this, but how good that some of those folks are that do their jobs from a nutrition and weight and conditioning standpoint, like at this level. And that's when you get into full-time job type conversations, that's absolutely what these things are, because they're eating 5 to 6 meals a day, specialized shakes, and all kinds of stuff, whether you're trying to cut weight, add weight, whatever. I mean, it's very much specialized. And certainly some of these kids that come from Group of 5 programs benefit from it, mightily, because where they're at, they just don't do it like that. You don't have the either budget or staff to be able to handle it that way. But yeah, I think your interior of your offensive line has been solidified for next year. You still need an offensive tackle or two, and I do think that the hunt is still on for that. But you feel better now than you did. You've got 2 pieces here, but I'll move on here. But Davion Carter picked you over. I think Kansas and Colorado were heavily in the mix there. So that's kind of 2 conference opponents. You either get him or you're playing against him, kind of thing. So,
well, and I don't want to make too much. I was just a little surprised to see that number. I think the Toledo guy was listed a little over 300 pounds, 285. Yeah. I don't know. Should that be surprised? Where do you think they really want these guys to be?
Yeah, probably closer to 300. And I bet he's that way in, the next 6 to 9 months. But, again, I think he's really good though. I think he's very quick. I think he can move. And without Texas and Oklahoma in the league, you're not going to necessarily see, 350 or 360 staring at you across the line as much as you used to. When anytime you'd go up against those guys, like those 2 teams specifically, you're just like, they have really good big people, and there's not, so I think that's a little less. And heck, though, you're going to go against your own version of that, because Danny Salee, one of the guys you brought in here, he's about 360.
Well, and when we're talking about some of those big people, not just big people, but big people that can move well, also, we saw that in Austin with that impressive pair of defensive tackles that were wearing faded red that night. I mean, burnt orange, whatever it is. I don't know. Chris, enjoyed the conversation in the week. As always, hope you do get some Independence Bowl action via whatever medium. If you need to give me a call, FaceTime, whatever, I can show you the television, whatever you need there on Press Row. If you're listening on the radio broadcast and maybe Chris is a little late to call the action, maybe he's watching the third down play via my phone. I don't know. So give him a break. Enjoy the call there in Fort Worth, man, and we'll be back on the other side to talk hoops, to talk football, and brace for the offseason, as it will truly be upon us. But that does not mean taking a break from the fast and furious news, because the transfer portal action will continue to come our way, I'd imagine.
Yes, it will. You still have spots to fill. And, so hopefully I'll see a lot of you in Fort Worth. Please come say hi. If not, hope a lot of you are in Shreveport. Enjoy your time there. Make sure you get it done there in Shreveport, Bossier City area. Otherwise, man, home, fire, beverage, TV, knock yourself out, man. Enjoy the viewing. This is got to be a fun night for a fan. If you can't be at either one of these venues, man, enjoy some couch time and some sauce. How about that? But
that
keep hope alive.
Great.
Yeah, that's right.
That sounds great. Is your garage code still the same? I don't mind swinging by to check on the house while you're out of town.
There you go. Yes, it is. Yes,
okay,
it
good
is.
deal. Okay, good deal. Don't have to update anybody on that. Okay,
Right.
Appreciate you guys for hanging with us throughout the week. Hopefully you enjoy the ball games coming up this weekend and get back with us on the other side as we recap for better or worse. For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Hope to see you back here for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.